ठीक।
करे शुरू सर हैं करें कर दो सर शुरू ठीक है With a heavy heart, we start today's webinar, remembering and offering prayer to the founder member of our study circle, CA Ajay Mataji, who left for his heavenly abode on 19th October 2021. He was a great knowledge bank, a gentle, sincere, and hard worker, and a wonderful person with a wonderful sense of humor. He was our guiding force and a humble soul. His untimely departure has left a vacuum forever. There are no words that can fully capture the depth of my feeling on his loss. I was personally associated with him for more than 2 decades, and I am truly pained to share with you all this message of condolence. He had been the center of attraction in the group due to his knowledge, ever smiling face, and jovial, calm nature. We not only enjoyed his presence but learned a lot from him. He used to share his knowledge on various subjects like income tax, VAT, service tax, and etc., and kept us updated always. He had solution for every problem we used to discuss. He was and will always be like a star for all of us. Mataji, you will always remain in our heart. You will never be forgotten, but will always be greatly missed. May God shower strength to the family and to our fear fraternity to come out of this gloom. We promise to work in unison for this study circle in his footsteps and in the light of his guidance, and wish you keep on showering your love from your new abode. Now, I request everyone to pray for devoted soul and hold 1 minute silence. Om Shanti Om. I welcome speakers of the day, CA Ashok Batraji, who will join us shortly, CA Ashok Jainji, Deputy Convener CA Vipul Mataji, and all the members and participants on the 17th virtual webinar of Rohini CP Study Circle. Today's webinar is divided into two technical sessions. First session will be taken by CA Ashok Jainji. He will be delivering on recent developments related to income tax, GST, ICI, etc. from previous webinar till date. Second session will be taken by a very learned speaker, C. Ashok Batraji, on assessment and adjudication in GST. I now invite C. Ashok Jainji for his talk.
Please welcome C. Ashok Batraji. Namaste, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, friends. CA Ravi Shankar Arora ji, convener of the study circle, CA Vipul Mataji, deputy convener of the study circle, CA Ashok Batraji, co-speakers of the today program, ladies and gentlemen. I have compiled the notifications and circular issued between our previous webinar to this webinar. First, I will take income tax part. Rules for offshore indirect transfer. The CBDT has issued press release that the 2021 Act also provides that the demand raised for the offshore indirect transfer of Indian assets made before 28 May 2012, including the validation of demand provided under Section 119 of the Finance Act 2012, shall be nullified on fulfillment of specified conditions such as withdrawal or furnishing of undertaking for the withdrawal of pending litigations and furnishing of an undertaking to the effect that no claim for cost damages interest shall be filed and such other conditions are fulfilled as may be prescribed. The amount paid collected in these cases shall be refunded without any interest on fulfillment of the said conditions. ये इन्होंने एक जो 2020 का जो हमारा फाइनेंस एक्ट आया था उसमें एक अमेंडमेंट किया था, क्योंकि जैसा आपको पता है कि इन्होंने कैपिटल गेन टैक्स लगाया था कोई भी इनडायरेक्ट ट्रांसफर थे दैट कैपिटल एसेट्स हेल्ड इन इंडिया, तो उसके अंदर डिपार्टमेंट ने कुछ डिमांड रेज की थी क्योंकि ये इन्होंने इफेक्टिव किया था 1961 से, क्लैरिफिकेशन के थ्रू आया था, तो इन्होंने 1961 से जो भी थे उनकी डिमांड रेज की थी। तो अब ये गवर्नमेंट ने एक अमेंडमेंट किया जिसमें कहा कि क्योंकि जो अमेंडमेंट जो आया था वो 28 मई 2012 को आया था, तो उन्होंने कहा कि जो 2012 से पहले जो भी हमारे इस तरह की अगर कोई डिमांड्स है तो उन्होंने दो रूल्स डाले हैं इसमें, रूल 11UA which provide the specified condition in order to be eligible to claim the relief under 2021 Act, and rule 11UF which provide the form and manner of furnishing the undertaking for withdrawal of the pending litigations claiming no cost damages etc. तो इन दो जो रूल्स है बेसिकली इसमें इन्होंने कंडीशन स्पेसिफाइड की और फॉर्म स्पेसिफाइड किए हैं कि जिनकी भी इस तरह की कोई डिमांड रेज है, और जो हमारा इनडायरेक्ट जो ट्रांसफर था ऑफशोर इनडायरेक्ट ट्रांसफर जो 28 मई 2012 से पहले था और जिनकी डिमांड रेज की हुई है, तो उस केसेस में जो असेसी है उसको ये 2 फॉर्म भर के देने हैं, जिसके अंदर फॉर्म्स के अंदर इन्होंने सारे पर्टिकुलर्स दिए हैं और उसके अंदर इन्होंने कहा है कि गवर्नमेंट आपका जो टैक्स जो आपने जमा किया हुआ है वो रिफंड करेगी, लेकिन कोई उस पर इंटरेस्ट नहीं दिया जाएगा, कोई डैमेजेस नहीं देंगे, कोई कॉस्ट नहीं देंगे। तो जो पुराने लिटिगेशंस थे इसमें मेनली तो जैसे वोडाफोन का था, क्रेन इंडिया का था, तो उनको इसमें काफी रिलीफ मिलेगा। तो उसमें इन्होंने रूल्स वो प्रिस्क्राइब किए। Rollout of annual information statement. The income tax department has rolled out the new annual information statement AIS on the compliance portal, which provide a comprehensive view of information to the taxpayer with the facility to capture online feedback. The new AIS can be accessed by clicking the annual information system under service tab on the new income tax e-filing portal. The display of Form 26 AS on Traces portal will also be continue in parallel till new AIS is validated and completely operational. तो इसके अंदर इन्होंने एनुअल इंफॉर्मेशन स्टेटमेंट जो प्रिस्क्राइब किया, अभी उन्होंने 2021 की इसके अंदर दिया है डिटेल्स जो भी है। तो आप जैसे ही एसएससी अपने लॉगिन करेगा तो लॉगिन में सर्विसेज टैब के अंदर एआईएस आएगी। तो आप जब एआईएस खोलोगे तो उसमें दो, एक लेफ्ट साइड है और एक राइट साइड है। एक में तो समरी दी हुई है इन्होंने कि जो हमारा जो टोटल ट्रांजेक्शन है उसकी समरी है, और दूसरी तरफ उसकी डिटेल्स है। तो इसके अंदर बेसिकली इन्होंने जो कॉलम्स है, ए जो कॉलम है उसमें तो जनरल इंफॉर्मेशन है एसएससी के बारे में, और जो बी है उसमें टीडीएस, टीसीएस और जो एसएफटी की इंफॉर्मेशन है जैसे डिविडेंड की, शेयर ट्रांजैक्शन की, म्यूचुअल फंड ट्रांजैक्शन की, डिबेंचर्स की, वो सारी ट्रांजैक्शन उन्होंने जो भी एसएससी ने 2021 के अंदर एग्जीक्यूट किए। उसी तरह फिर पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस है, डिमांड एंड रिफंड्स है और अदर इंफॉर्मेशन है। तो इसमें इन्होंने एक फैसिलिटी और भी दी है कि आप उसको चेक कर सकते हैं, और जो भी आपका मान लो कोई मिस रिपोर्टिंग है उसके अंदर और जो इन्फॉर्मेशन आपसे पर्टेन नहीं करती या कोई डुप्लीकेट इन्फॉर्मेशन है, तो एसएससी उसको उसके लिए ठीक करने के लिए वहां पे ऑटो पॉपुलेटेड है, वहां पे अपना वो दे सकता है डिटेल्स उसके अंदर। और जो फॉर्म 26 AS है जो ट्रेसिस के पोर्टल पे है, वो और ये दोनों पैरेलल साथ साथ चलेंगे। अभी इन्होंने कहा है कि जो टीडीएस का और टीसीएस का क्रेडिट है वो 26 AS के बेसिस पे ही मिलेगा, और जो AIS के अंदर जो फील्ड्स आएंगी वो धीरे धीरे करके ये ऑटो पॉपुलेटेड भी होंगी हमारी इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न के अंदर। तो ये काफी कंप्रेहेंसिव डिटेल है, इसके अंदर जो भी शेयर्स की ट्रांजैक्शंस है आपकी वो सारी आपको वहां दिखाएगा ये एनुअल इंफॉर्मेशन स्टेटमेंट के अंदर। तो इसको आप डाउनलोड भी कर सकते हैं पीडीएफ फॉर्मेट में, सीएसवी फॉर्मेट में और JS1 के अंदर। Revised process for filing of Form 15 CA and CB. The CBTT has issued process document for filing of 15 CA and CB. अभी तक जो जब से नया पोर्टल आया है जून से, उसके बाद से हमारे 15 CA और CB जो है वो ऑफलाइन ही इशू हो रहे थे, ऑनलाइन अभी तक फाइल नहीं हो रहे थे। तो इन्होंने एक प्रोसेस डॉक्यूमेंट दिया है कि आप 15 CA एंड 15 CB आप कैसे फाइल कर सकते हैं। तो इसके अंदर दोनों का इन्होंने प्रोसेस दिया है। अभी भी क्या है कि आपका ऑनलाइन फाइल नहीं हो सकते, उन्होंने ऑफलाइन यूटिलिटी दी है। उस ऑफलाइन यूटिलिटी में आप भर के और जो फाइल है जिप फाइल बनेगी, वो जिप फाइल आप अपलोड कर सकते हैं। तो उन्होंने 15 CA का इसमें प्रोसेस दिया हुआ है और 15 CB का भी दिया हुआ है। लेकिन जैसे पहले इन्होंने कहा था कि जितने आप इस इंटरवीनिंग पीरियड के आप जो 15 CA CB इशू करोगे जो जून से लेके अभी तक के, तो वो बाद में आपको फाइल करने पड़ेंगे। लेकिन अभी जब हमने जिसको ट्राई करके देखा तो 15 CA CB जो दोनों है वो करंट डेट के ले रहा है, पुराने डेट के अभी नहीं ले रहा वो इसके अंदर। तो हो सकता है इसके बाद में कोई चेंज करें कि आपको पुराने आपको 15 CA और CB भरने हैं उसके लिए वो डिटेल्स दे। तो प्रोसेस डॉक्यूमेंट के अंदर इन्होंने पूरा प्रोसीजर इनका प्रिस्क्राइब किया है। Guidelines under clause 23FE of the section 10. The CBDT has issued circular that it is hereby clarified that eligibility of exemption under clause 23FE of section 10 of the Act of Sovereign Wealth Fund and Pension Fund shall be as follows. इसमें जो हमारे सोवरिन वेल्थ फंड है, जो पेंशन फंड होते हैं, उनको एक एग्जेम्पशन मिलती है सेक्शन 10 के अंदर, लेकिन उसमें एक कंडीशन होती है कि आपकी जो आप इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं दैट इज नॉट फ्रॉम दी लोन्स एंड बोरोइंग्स। तो उसी में इन्होंने एक क्लैरिफिकेशन दी है, इफ द लोन्स एंड बोरोइंग हैव बीन टेकन बाय द स्पेसिफाइड फंड or any of its group concerned specifically for the purpose of making investment by the specified fund in India, such fund shall not be eligible for exemption under of the Act. If the loans and borrowing have been taken by the specified fund or any of its group concerned, not specifically for the purpose of making investment in India, it shall not be presumed that the investment in India have been made out of such loans and borrowing, and such specified fund shall be eligible for the exemption under section 23FE of the section 10 of the Act, subject to the fulfillment of all other conditions. provided that source of investment in India is not from such loans and borrowings. तो बेसिकली इसमें जो सेक्शन 10 के अंदर जो भी सोवरिन वेल्थ फंड और पेंशन फंड होते हैं, उनकी जो इनकम होती है इंडिया के अंदर, जैसे इंटरेस्ट इनकम है या डिविडेंड इनकम है या कैपिटल गेन इनकम है, अगर वो सर्टेन कंडीशन स्पेसिफाइड जो है वो अगर प्रेस्क्राइब कंडीशन है तो उसका इनकम एग्जेम्प्ट होती है इंडिया के अंदर. E-settlement scheme 2021, the CBDT issued notification and notified an e-settlement scheme 2021 to settle pending income tax settlement application transfer to the settlement commission. The scheme will be applicable to pending application in respect of which the appellant has not exercised the option under subsection 1 of section 245M of the act and which has been allotted or transferred by CBDT to an interim board. तो इन्होंने बेसिकली पूरा एक प्रिस्क्राइब, क्योंकि आपको पता है कि जो सेटलमेंट्स कमीशन है उसने फंक्शनिंग बंद कर दी अपनी 31 जनवरी से. तो जो 31 जनवरी से पहले जो भी एप्लीकेशंस फाइल हैं या उसके बाद भी जिनकी प्रिपेयर थी एप्लीकेशंस, उनको भी इन्होंने एक मौका दिया था कि आप ये जो पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस है वो फाइल कर सकते हैं. तो इसमें ई सेटलमेंट स्कीम के अंदर इन्होंने पूरा प्रोसीजर जो है वो डिफाइन किया है कि आगे उन जो पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस है वो कैसे उनको डिस्पोज ऑफ किया जाएगा. Exemption from filing of return. The CBDT has issued notification and hereby exempt the following class of person from the requirement of furnishing return for the assessment year 21-22. A non-resident not being a company or a foreign company. The said class of person does not earn any income in India during the previous year other than the income from investment in specified fund referred to in subclause 1 of clause C of explanation in clause 4D of section 10 of the said act. The provision of section 139A of the said are not applicable to the said class of persons subject to the fulfillment of conditions. तो इनको अगर ये specified conditions अगर करते हैं और जो इनकम इनकी इन्वेस्टमेंट से जो इनकम है तो इनको रिटर्न फाइल करने की जरूरत नहीं है, उसके लिए एग्जामिशन है. इसी तरह दूसरे जो नॉन रेजिडेंट बीइंग एन एलिजिबल फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर, the said class of person during the previous year has made transaction only in capital assets referred to in clause 7A B of the section 47 of the act, which are listed on the recognized exchange located in any international finance service center, and the consideration on transfer of such capital is paid or payable in foreign currency. तो इन class of person को भी exemption रहेगी. Clarification on price fixed under section 36(1) clause 17. The CBDT has issued circular and it is clarified that purchase price fixed or approved by the government in clause 17 in subsection 1 of section 36 of the act includes price fixation by state government through state level act, orders or other legal instrument that regulate the purchase price for sugarcane, including state advice price, which may be higher than the statutory minimum price, fair and remunerative price fixed by the central government. तो basically जो भी cooperative societies है that are engaged in manufacturing of sugar, तो उसमें जो उनको एक डिडक्शन मिलती है सेक्शन 36(1) क्लॉज 17 के अंदर, कि जो भी वो शुगर केन परचेज करते हैं तो वो दैट प्राइस शुड बी अप्रूव्ड बाय द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. तो उसका एक इन्होंने क्लैरिफिकेशन दे दिया कि अगर कोई स्टेट गवर्नमेंट है या कोई रेगुलेटेड अदर प्राइसेस है, कोई स्टैट्यूटरी मिनिमम प्राइस है या फेयर है या रेम्यूनरेटेड प्राइस फिक्स बाय दी, तो उस सब का आपको उसके उतने अमाउंट तक की इनको डिडक्शन मिलेगी. Variation in arm's length price. The CBDT has issued notification and hereby notifies that where the variation between the arm length price determined under section 92C and the price at which the international transaction or specified domestic transaction has actually been undertaken does not exceed 1% of the latter in respect of wholesale trading and 3% of the latter in all other cases. The price at which the international transaction or specified domestic transaction has actually been undertaken shall be deemed to be arm length price for assessment year 2022. तो बेसिकली ये हर साल ये नोटिफाई करते हैं कि जो वेरिएशन, जैसे कि वेरिएशन कितना हो सकता है आर्म लेंथ प्राइस में और एक्चुअल ट्रांजैक्शन में. अगर ये 1% अगर वेरिएशन रहता है होलसेल ट्रेडिंग में और 3% अदर केसेस में अगर रहता है तो आपका आर्म लेंथ प्राइस ही वो एक्सेप्ट करते हैं. तो ये 21-22 के लिए इन्होंने प्रेस्क्राइब किया है वाइड नोटिफिकेशन नंबर 124. GST. Clarification on GST rates on goods. The CBIC has issued circular and clarification with reference to GST levy related to the following are being issued. तो बेसिकली ये कुछ जो अभी हमारी 45th मीटिंग हुई थी GST काउंसिल की, तो उन्होंने कुछ रेट्स का क्लैरिफिकेशन दिया था. तो उसी का इन्होंने सर्कुलर के माध्यम से सारे जो आइटम्स है इसके अंदर उनका क्लैरिफाई किया है कि जैसे फ्रेश एंड ड्राई फ्रूट नट्स है तो उन पे क्या रेट लगेगा। तो बेसिकली जो सारे इन आइटम्स के अंदर रेट्स का इन्होंने क्लैरिफिकेशन दिया है गुड्स के अंदर। Clarification regarding GST rates on services. The CBIC issued circular and issued clarification regarding applicable GST rates on the following activities. इसी तरह इन्होंने एक सर्विसेज का भी सर्कुलर इशूड किया है जिसके अंदर जो 45th जो मीटिंग हुई थी सेंट्रल जीएसटी काउंसिल की उसके अंदर जो आइटम से रिलेटेड डिसीजंस लिए थे तो बेसिकली इन्होंने लिस्ट किए हैं सर्विसेज बाय क्लाउड किचन एंड सेंट्रल किचन, इसी तरह सप्लाई ऑफ आइसक्रीम बाय आइसक्रीम पार्लर। तो जैसे इसका आइसक्रीम पार्लर का इन्होंने कहा कि 12% टैक्स लगेगा, वो आपका रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज में कवर नहीं होगा। तो इस तरह से इन्होंने डिफरेंट जो सर्विसेज हैं उसके बारे में क्लैरिफिकेशन दिया है। तो इसलिए मेंबर को ये एडवाइस है कि भाई आप जो दोनों ये सर्कुलर्स हैं क्योंकि डिटेल में है काफी, तो आप ईच एंड एवरी आइटम का आप क्लैरिफिकेशन उसका सर्कुलर से पढ़ लें। Guidelines for disallowing debit of the electronic credit ledger. The CBIC has issued guidelines for disallowing debit of electronic credit ledger under Rule 86A of the CGX Rule 2017. तो एक बेसिकली इन्होंने गाइडलाइंस इशू की है अपने ऑफिसर्स को कि जब भी आप कोई भी डिसअलाउ करोगे डेबिट इन इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर रूल 86A के अंदर, तो आप ये जो गाइडलाइंस इशू की है आप इसको फॉलो करोगे। क्योंकि जो 86A के अंदर बेसिकली ये जो भी हमारा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर के अंदर जो पैसा क्रेडिट पड़ा होता है वो डेबिट अलाउड नहीं करते। अगर आपका मान लो कोई इनएलिजिबल क्रेडिट आपने लिया हुआ है या आपने कोई क्रेडिट लिया है जिसका गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज रिसीव नहीं हुए, या जो आपका सप्लायर है उसने रिटर्न फाइल नहीं की, गवर्नमेंट में टैक्स पे नहीं किया, या कोई मान लो जो नॉन एग्जिस्टिंग डीलर से आपने परचेज की हुई है, तो उन केसेस के अंदर ये रूल 86A का यूज करते हैं। और जो आपका डेबिट अलाउड नहीं करती इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट, तो उसमें इन्होंने गाइडलाइंस दे दी और उसमें कुछ प्रिस्क्राइब भी कर दिया कि कौन कौन जो है, जैसे मान लो इन्होंने इसमें एक लिमिट भी प्रिस्क्राइब कर दी कि जो 1 करोड़ तक का अगर कोई आईटीसी ब्लॉक करना है तो वो डिप्टी कमिश्नर और असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर कर सकता है, और जो 1 से 5 का है वो एडिशनल कमिश्नर या ज्वाइंट कमिश्नर कर सकता है, जो 5 करोड़ से ऊपर है वो प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर या कमिश्नर कर सकता है। और बाकी इन्होंने इसमें गाइडलाइंस दे दी कि सारी कि आपको कैसे ये प्रोसीजर फॉलो करना है। Advisory on GSTR 2B. GST Network has issued the advisory for the taxpayer on Form GSTR 2B, where it was stated that availability of ITC made available to the taxpayer in the afternoon of 14th of every month. Form GSTR 2B is an auto-drafted ITC statement that is generated for every normal taxpayer on the basis of the information furnished. तो ये हर 14th को आफ्टरनून के अंदर आपका 2B जनरेट कर देंगे, क्योंकि 11th तक आपकी GSTR 1 फाइल हो जाती है और 13 तक आपकी IFF या जो GSTR 1 हमारी क्वार्टरली जाती है वो फाइल हो जाती है। तो आपको 2B के अंदर 14 के आफ्टरनून में आपके वो सारी डिटेल्स रिफ्लेक्ट करेंगी जो भी 13 तक GSTR 1 फाइल की हुई है। Advisory on ITC of 2021. As per section 16 subsection 4 of the CG Act, no taxpayer shall take input credit in respect of records, invoices and debit notes for supply of goods or services for the financial year 2021 after the due date of furnishing the return for the month of September 2021. In view of the same, the following may kindly be noted. तो बेसिकली ये प्रोविजन तो एक्ट के अंदर पहले ही है कि जो भी आपका जो आईटीसी आपको लेना है 2021 का, तो जो 3B की ड्यू डेट है जो कि मान लो 20 अक्टूबर थी या 22 थी या 24 थी, तो जो भी आपको 2021 का आईटीसी लेना था वो उसी के अंदर है। तो बेसिकली इन्होंने इसका रिकॉर्ड्स का इन्होंने कहा है कि रिकॉर्ड्स इनवॉइस डेबिट पर्टेनिंग टू द फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2021 reported in GST1 after the due date of GSTR 3B of September will not reflect in ITC available in 2B of the recipient. Such record will reflect ITC not available. तो जो भी आप उसके बाद में GSTR 1 फाइल करेंगे और अब अगर कोई भी आप इनपुट लेंगे तो आपका वो ITC नॉट अवेलेबल उसके अंदर रिफ्लेक्ट करेगा। इसी तरह 2 के अंदर भी वो ऐसे रिफ्लेक्ट करेगा। और फिर साथ में इन्होंने कह दिया इट इज रिक्वेस्टेड दैट द टैक्स पेयर मे टेक नोट that about to ensure that the records pertaining to the financial year 2021 are reported on or before the due date of their GSTR 3B for the month of September 21 or for the quarter of July to September in case of quarterly GSTR 3B filer. Availment of ITC by the recipient contrary to the legal provision in GST may entail action by the tax administration in accordance with the law of 2021. तो बेसिकली एडवाइजरी दी है इन्होंने कि ITC आपका जो 2021 का था वो 3B की फाइलिंग ड्यू डेट सितंबर 2021 तक ही अवेलेबल था। extension of filing of LLP form. The MCA has issued circular and it has been decided to allow LLP to file form number 8 for the financial year 2021 without paying additional fees up to 30th December 2021. जो पहले इसकी ड्यू डेट थी वो 31 अक्टूबर थी, तो उसको इन्होंने एक्सटेंड कर दिया 30th दिसंबर 2021 तक। तो फॉर्म नंबर 8 आप LLP का 30th दिसंबर तक फाइल कर सकते हैं। Extension of filing of annual forms. The MCA has issued circular and keeping in view of the various requests received from the stakeholder regarding relaxation on levy of additional fees for annual financial statement filing required to be done for the financial year 21, it has been decided that no additional fees shall be levied up to 31st December 2021. तो जो हमारे एनुअल फाइलिंग होते हैं जो 31 मार्च 2021 के थे, जिसके अंदर आपका AOC4, AOC4 CFS, AOC4 XBRL, AOC4 नॉन XBRL, MGT7, MGT7A, तो जो भी फाइनेंशियल ईयर रिलेटेड 31 मार्च 2021 का है, तो आप उसको आप 31 दिसंबर तक विदाउट एनी एडिशनल फीस आप फाइल कर सकते हैं। इसमें आपको पता है कि पहले इन्होंने आपका AGM की डेट एक्सटेंड की थी, जो 30 सितंबर थी, वो उन्होंने कहा था कि आप AGM 30 नवंबर तक होल्ड कर सकते हैं। तो उसके हिसाब से अब मान लो आपकी कोई भी AGM अगर आपने 30 सितंबर को की है या 31 अक्टूबर को की है या 30 नवंबर को की है, तो सबकी ड्यू डेट 31 दिसंबर 2021 है। लेकिन इसके अंदर जैसे हम कोई भी अगर AGM है जो 30 नवंबर को होल्ड करते हैं, जिसका हमें MGT7 के लिए हमें 2 मंथ्स मिलते हैं, तो उसका आपको वो आप जैसे 30 नवंबर को अगर करते हैं तो आप 30 जनवरी तक उसको फाइल कर सकते हैं। उसमें आपका जो AOC4 है वो तो 30 दिसंबर तक जाएगा और जो MGT7 है वो आप आगे भी फाइल कर सकते हैं। Extension of cost audit report. The MCA has issued circular. It has been decided that cost audit report for the financial year 2021 by the cost auditor to the board of director of companies is submitted by 30th November 2021. Consequently, the cost audit report for the financial year ended 31st March 2020 shall be filed in e-form CRA4 within 30 days from the date of receipt of copy of cost audit report by the company. तो ये भी डेट इन्होंने एक्सटेंड कर दी कि 30 नवंबर तक तो आप कॉस्ट ऑडिटर से रिपोर्ट ले सकता है बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स, और उसके बाद विद इन 30 डेज आप CRA4 फाइल कर सकते हैं। Deflagging of DINs. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has flagged the DINs of directors found to be disqualified under subsection 2A of section 164 of the Companies Act 2013 with effect from 1st November 2016 for a period of 5 years. This is for the information to all concerned that DINs eligible to be deflagged on expiry of the period of disqualification are in the process of verification. तो इसके अंदर बेसिकली इन्होंने 1 नवंबर 2016 में बहुत सारे डायरेक्टर्स के जो डिन थे वो डिस्क्वालीफाइड कर दिए थे इन्होंने, जिसमें किसी में एनुअल रिटर्न फाइलिंग नहीं थी या जो कंपनीज ने कंप्लायंस नहीं की थी। लेकिन जो डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन था वो 5 साल के लिए था, जो कि अभी 31 अक्टूबर 2021 को खत्म हो गया। हिसाब से तो इनको ऑटोमेटिक उनको डीफ्लैग कर देने चाहिए थे, क्योंकि 5 साल का पीरियड होने के बाद में। लेकिन अब इन्होंने कहा है, इसका ये कि इन्होंने इशू किया है प्रेस नोट, जिसमें इन्होंने कहा है कि हम जो डी फ्लैग है वो चेक करने के बाद करेंगे। एक्सटेंशन ऑफ लास्ट डेट ऑफ MEF, द मल्टीपर्पज एम्पैनलमेंट फॉर्म फॉर द ईयर 2021, जो आपकी ड्यू डेट थी उसको फाइलिंग की वो 10 नवंबर थी, जिसको बढ़ा के इन्होंने 20 नवंबर 2021 तक कर दिया। तो आप MEF फॉर्म 21-22 के लिए 20 नवंबर 2021 तक फाइल कर सकते हैं। Advisory to file NAFRA 2 annual return. ICAI's wide announcement dated 28 October 20 issued advisory to file form NAFRA 2 annual return for the reporting period 18-19 and 19-20 immediately without any delay if not filed already to avoid the penal consequences. क्योंकि जो 18-19 और जो 19-20 की थी उसकी ऑलरेडी जो NAFRA 2 की फाइलिंग की डेट थी वो निकल चुकी है, और जो 2021 के लिए जो NAFRA 2 फाइल करना है उसकी ड्यू डेट 30 नवंबर 2021 है। तो अब इन्होंने एक एडवाइजरी दी है, क्योंकि जो NAFRA 2 है बेसिकली उन कंपनीज पे ऑडिटर्स पे एप्लीकेबल होता है जो कोई लिस्टेड कंपनीज की ऑडिट करते हैं या कोई अनलिस्टेड कंपनीज की ऑडिट करते हैं जिनकी जो नेटवर्थ है वो 500 करोड़ से ऊपर है या टर्नओवर 1000 करोड़ से ऊपर है। तो उनको ये NAFRA 2 फाइल करना पड़ता है कि जो भी उन्होंने फाइनेंशियल ईयर के अंदर जिन भी कंपनीज की ऑडिट की, उस कंपनीज की ऑडिट से रिलेटेड जो डिटेल है वो फॉर्म नंबर NAFRA 2 के अंदर MCA में फाइल करनी पड़ती है। तो उसके लिए उन्होंने एक टाइम दिया है कि भाई आप 18, 19 और 19-20 का भी फॉर्म फाइल कर दीजिए। I have compiled the due dates for the rest month of the November and up to 11th December 2021. Thank you. Thank you for the patient hearing.
Thank you, Ashok Uncle, for a wonderful presentation. And now it's time for the second topic of the day. And before we start with that, I would like to briefly introduce Ashok Batra ji. Ashok Batra ji became a chartered accountant in 1981. Subsequently, he became a law graduate in 2009. Besides, he is an alumnus of well-known Sri Ram College of Commerce, Delhi College, and he's from the batch of 1977. Presently, he is a senior partner in Messrs. A.K. Batra and Associates, which is a leading chartered accountancy firm of Northern India, which he commenced way back in 1982. He has excellent academic credentials and immense exposure in the field of taxation, with specialization in DVAT, service tax, and GST. He possesses rich and diverse professional experience of 4 decades in business and taxation consultancy, and 16 years experience in litigation matters. Many cases professionally represented by him and adjudicated in favor of his clients have been reported in prominent law journals. His professional dedication and integrity of the highest standards have enabled him to continuously associated with the leading organizations both in public and private sectors. In order to share his diligent gained knowledge of indirect tax with his professional fraternity, he has been writing articles in books ever since 2004. Following GST books authored by him are presently available in the market, which are GST Law and Procedures 5th edition, GST Ready Reckoner 3rd edition, GST Audit and Annual Returns 2nd edition. In the past too, he had the privilege of writing several widely acclaimed books in DVAT and service tax for more than 12 years. He has effectively addressed more than 1,500 seminars and conferences on indirect taxes organized by professional institutes like ICI, ICSI, Chamber of Commerce, trade associations, National Academics of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, nearly throughout the India. He has also been a faculty of certificate course on indirect taxes of ICI at all leading centers. Furthermore, he has been invited to deliver union budget talk on indirect taxes by many study circles, branches, and regional councils of ICI, as well as by leading chambers of commerce online portals like TIOL and industry and media channels. Another feather had been added in his cap when he was conferred with the Best Speaker Award of Indirect Taxes by NIRC of ICI. Besides, he had the privilege of being a special invitee to the GST and Indirect Tax Committee of ICI for so many years. So we are thrilled to have you here, and we cannot wait to hear you on the topic assigned to you. Please welcome, sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Shri Ravi Shankar Arora ji, Shri Vipul Mata, Deputy Convener, Ashok Kumar Jain, my co-speaker. And when I talk about Rohini Study Circle, I cannot forget the name of my dear friend and my younger brother, Ajay Mata. I think I have been associated with this study circle for more than 2 decades. Every finance bill, whenever it was being presented, I was being called upon to share my views on indirect taxes, including service tax, GST, etc. There is a saying in Punjabi, "Tera bhana mitha lage." He has left us so early. Not only he, in fact, because of the same disease, I have lost my 2 real brothers also. This corona has really been very difficult for me, at least personally. I lost my 1 sister and 3 real brothers. And if I go out of the family, then I'm losing this Mata brother also. Anyway, life has to go on. Now coming to the topic and other things. First of all, my sincere thanks to Bipulji for reading this nice introduction and providing me this opportunity wherein I can share my views on a very interesting subject of assessment and adjudication in GST. When you do practice in any fiscal law, the whole purpose is my client case is being assessed without creating any demand. So this assessment and adjudication, why these two terms are there and what is the difference between the two? First of all, let us understand this. If you go to the dictionary, then assessment means making a judgment, which was prevalent in sales tax and income tax. We all understand in income tax, we file our returns. We serve as a notice under section 142, that is 142(1). My case was selected for scrutiny. Certain questions are being asked. I provide answer to those questions. And then on the basis of my replies, he make a judgment. He make an assessment of my income. So it is making a judgment, whereas adjudication is resolving a dispute. Now, in case you compare this procedure of income tax with our indirect taxes, then you must be aware now, because we ourselves are covered in service tax. We understand, first of all, they issue inquiry letter, some investigations goes on. In the investigation, he asks for a number of documents which are being submitted. And out of those documents, he selects certain document which become part of the show cause notice, which is being issued in case there is a difference of opinion between the assessee and the revenue. And this investigation or inquiry period may run sometime into 2 years, 3 years. All your possible views on the issues are being taken by the department, and department will also counter them by quoting the judgment in their favor. But still, there's no question of assessment after this long process, long drawn process. They serve you show cause notice, which is only a show cause notice. And this show cause notice can be issued in 4 situations: when the GST has not been paid, short paid, there is erroneous claim of refund, or there is wrong availment or utilization of credit. And section 73 deal with the situation when these 4 situations are there: without fraud, collusion, and misstatement. If these 4 events, non-payment, etc., is due to these 3 factors, then section 74 applies. Now, once the assessment procedure was there in income tax and sales tax, and there is the adjudication process now in GST, which was earlier on in service tax, excise, and custom. Because VAT has also been subsumed in GST, so now they have borrowed both the concept, assessment and adjudication, and embedded into the GST law. It is very interesting. If you think from one angle, I said non-payment, short payment, erroneous refund, and wrong availment of utilization credit. That is the only 4 possible things in GST which can happen. If for that matter, whether it is with regard to fraud, consent, etc., willful misstatement, etc., or it may be without willful misstatement, then the question comes, why there is a need for the assessment? If you cannot recover anything without serving a show cause notice, then what is the sanctity of this assessment? Friends, I'll deal with this in detail because I understand most of you have been practicing in income tax rather than GST. As I told you, adjudication process is a very long drawn process, and then the show cause notice is being issued. And once the show cause notice is issued, you prefer an appeal against that by paying now in GST 10% of the disputed amount of tax before the commissioner, then 20% of the revenue goes to the tribunal. So even up to the tribunal stage, whatever demand is being proposed, the department is able to recover only 30% of the tax. So it was a huge long process, and in the meanwhile, a client or an assessee, or for now we can say supplier, he knows I don't have any case and he was having a huge property. So he gets time to dispose of those properties so that when the final demand is crystallized, the department is not able to recover anything. So in order to look at this and looking to the fact that both assessment and adjudication process both have their plus and minus, GST law has incorporated both assessment and adjudication in its fold. But friends, kindly appreciate this assessment, which is of 5 types, 59 to 64, I'll come to that a bit later, is entirely different than the assessment which is being done in income tax. In income tax, if an assessment is being done, that can be reopened or revision to 63 to 64, 148 can be done, or there can be a search in spite of the assessment being done. And this can be appealable order. Here, it is not so. In some of the cases, even this assessment does not create a demand at all. So this assessment, which is being introduced in service tax, is entirely different. We all know the concept of self-assessment was because the government wanted that the tax collection cost should be less as compared to the revenue. So every onus has been shifted to the assessee. Those who have been practicing since 80s, they know earlier on there used to be a Form 6 for extension of return, 11 and 12 for registration of forms, 29, 28 for advance tax. So everything is being abolished. It's all self-assessment, you do it. So it has its own demerits. Once you are self-assessing, the responsibility comes to you. And once the responsibility is on you to save the penalty, you had a very difficult case. So self-assessment is virtue in some sense, but it is having its own negative impact in certain cases. Now, if we look at the GST law, then you will appreciate that 59 deals with self-assessment, which is by the assessee. Section 60 deals with provisional assessment, which is the rest of the assessments are by the department. Assessee can do only self-assessment, which is under section 59. Then 60 is provisional assessment, section 60. Then scrutiny of return. It is a new concept which has been introduced in GST. I'll explain it when the time comes. Section 61. Then there are two best judgment assessment in section 62 and 63, which is applicable to non-filer or unregistered person. There's a difference between the two. Non-filer means you are registered and you're not filing your return. Unregistered means you're liable to be registered, but you have failed to get yourself registered. So there are two sections dealing with this best judgment assessment. Then there is a summary assessment in section 64. So long as the adjudication is concerned, that is being governed by section 73 and 74, which is almost of the similar line which was there in service tax, etc. Now coming to the self-assessment, we all know in income tax also you had a self-assessment procedure, wherein I have to calculate my output tax liability. I have to claim the credit and file the return. Very recently, Supreme Court in the case of Bharti, wherein 900 odd crore was the demand, and they said we have paid in cash in excess, whereas I was not able to claim the credit properly because this mechanism was not made applicable on the portal. Delhi High Court said, okay, fine, you can claim this refund. Supreme Court said, no, it is very important to understand this because it has got a huge implication on rest of the assessment and adjudication process. They say these are only the tool to facilitate the assessee to calculate his tax liability. Once these tools have not been operational or this information is not there, you have been filing your return even in pre-GST era. And self-assessment section 59 also costs a responsibility to you to calculate your output tax liability, claim the eligible credit and pay the taxes either in cash or in credit. Net tax has to be paid. So these are only the procedures which assist the assessee, but these are not the requirement of law. In case it is not there, you are not in the position to file it. Now, once you appreciate that, then you understand the importance of self-assessment. They talk about 2A, 2B and all that. They say it is only a tool to assist the assessee. If that being so, can you make it a base and issue me the notices, SM 10, etc., which I'll discuss when I deal with that subject. So this is the importance of self-assessment tax. But this self-assessment tax has got its own limitation in GST. there is a section 80, which empowers the commissioner to make me payment in installment wherever I am in financial difficulty. But then the benefit of payment in installment under section 80 is not available to me if it is a self-assessed tax. And second, very, very important thing which you need to remember is that once it's a self-assessed tax, they need not to serve you show cause notice under section 73 or 74. That long drawn procedure is not required. They say once it is self-assessed tax, you are admitting you are admitting your liability. Then it can be recovered directly by invoking the provision of section 79. And this provision has been laid down in subsection 13 of section 75. It is very, very important to note. And not only that, there is already a judgment of the Madhya Pradesh High Court, wherein a gentleman was declaring GSTR1, filing his sales returns, and he was not filing 3B. The department attached the bank account directly without issuing the show cause notice by invoking 7513, saying in the case of self-assessed tax, recovery can be done directly without going through the procedure of 7374. So Madhya Pradesh High Court has already dealt with this. So kindly appreciate that self-assessment is very, very important. You have to do it, every registered person, and there is no need to follow the procedure of adjudication in case it is a self-assessed demand. Now, in the case of LC infra project, wherein it has been very clearly stated that even in the case of interest, when it is self-interest, it can be recovered, but the interest where it has to be calculated by the department, you have to submit the show cause notice. They have issued a circular 76, wherein they have stated whether penalty under section 73 can be levied once you are self-assessing the tax and making the payment late, etc. They say normally in the case of late filing of return or self-assessment, we don't issue section 73 because the returns have already been filed, tax has already been paid. So whatever late fee is liable to be paid, you are only liable to pay that, and 73, 74 is normally not invoked in those situations. Then in the case of Malayalam Motors Private Limited, Kerala High Court, 2020-10 TMI 761, they allowed payment made in installment due to COVID situation. Now you can ask me, Mr. Batra, if the law prescribes that you cannot get the benefit of payment of tax in installment in the case of self-assessment, then how this is understood? Friends, let us appreciate that till tribunal, they are the statutory code, they cannot go beyond what is written in the law. But High Court and Supreme Court are the constitutional code, they can always go beyond the mandate of the law or the principle of natural justice, etc. circumstances, with the remark that this cannot be quoted as a precedent and it cannot have a binding effect on the subsequent cases. You cannot quote this case law and ask for the installment in every case. And in very recent case, I don't remember the High Court name, the same thing has happened. They have very clearly said that, that was only in the case of COVID issues, unless otherwise the exceptional situations are not there. Installment benefit is not available. Then friends, another question comes when I am filing my return, there may be some mistakes in the past. I am doing self-assessment, how to rectify those mistakes. I had a detailed presentation, but I am not dealing with that presentation because the time limit is only 1.5 hours. And I thought if I go with the presentation, it may create, obstructions, etc. And then I have to go through each slide. I'll share that with Vipulji, and then he can share with the members. So friends, in test, how to rectify? The law is very clear. Now this Bharti case has also made it clear there is no provision for rectification of return. Whenever any mistake comes to your knowledge, if it is a case where you have less paid the tax, you can pay the tax in DRC 03 and include the particulars, the 3B in the month in which that information has come to your knowledge. If it is merely a excess payment of tax, then section 54 will come into picture. You can claim a refund. And if it is only some arithmetical error or some error which does not have an effect on tax liability because the OTL, output tax liability credit has been correct, some code has been mentioned wrongly or something like that, you can simply intimate to them, to your jurisdictional officer, by writing a letter. Now, another very interesting aspect is, if I am supposed to file the return of August by 20th of September, and because my tax liability is huge, I pay tax in installment. I pay tax, let us say 10 lakh rupees on 25th of August, and then 10 lakh rupees on 20th of September. But on 20th September, when the due date of filing a return was there, I don't have 30 lakh rupees in my bank account. So I delay and file the return after 1 month. How to calculate the interest on this 50 lakh? Am I liable to pay tax on the whole 50 lakh from the due date of filing the return till the date of filing the return? Or whatever tax I have already paid in my cash ledger, that can be treated as a part payment of tax, and I'm liable to pay interest on the balance amount. This controversy has not yet been resolved, even in spite of the fact that Section 50 has been amended. It has been made clear that you're liable to pay interest only on the liability which is being discharged in cash, because whatever credit has accrued to you, that is a payment made to the department through the supplier of those supplies. In my humble understanding, if I read the explanation in Section 49, they say the date of credit to the account of the government is the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of deposit in the electronic cash. Meaning thereby, I have lost the liquidity, you have got the money, you're using it, and I cannot use that money. Even if it is lying in cash ledger, I can't use it. And the government is enjoying the liquidity. And there are a number of judgments, including Pratibha Processor with the Apex Court, which says interest is only for the liquidity loss. So in my humble understanding, I'm liable to pay interest only on 30 lakh rupees, which has been delayed. 20 lakh, which has been paid within the time, is not subject to interest. But this is my personal opinion. I fully agree. There are contrary view to this by the professionals also. But in any case, it is only the court which will decide the matter finally. But I am bringing to your knowledge, because sometimes the interest element is very significant. And once you yourself make the payment, if you make the short payment, department can issue a show cause notice, you can challenge it, you can contest it. But in case you yourself make the payment, then it's very difficult to claim refund from the department. So it is up to you. I'm just giving you a perspective how to deal with this interest. Now, friends, coming to Section 60, which deal with provisional assessment. If you look at this section, it is being drafted, I don't know, subclause 1 and 2 use the word taxable person. 3 doesn't use any word, it's not required. 4 use registered person. Now it is a provisional assessment. First of all, we'll go to that and then we'll understand what is the difference between the two. Provisional assessment is applicable only in 2 situations. Situation number 1, where the value of supply of goods and services could not be determined. Secondly, where the rate of tax is not clear. I am going to make out a supply which may be consisting of number of supplies. It is a composite or mixed, whether it is naturally bundled or not, I am not sure. Or the value is not being determined because my contract is not being finalized, but I am receiving advance, I have to discharge the liability. So this facility is being given, and in this facility, I can request the proper officer to calculate my tax liability, which I can discharge. But then it is very clear by the subsequent subsection, if at the final assessment, I'm liable to pay additional amount, then that amount will be subject to interest from the day I was liable to pay the tax. And in case an excess amount has been paid, I'm entitled for the refund along with interest. That is Section 54. Whatever tax rates are there. He can, if he feels, yes, I am asking you to pay tax at 12%, then maybe 18%, he can ask you to execute a bond for the differential value, which you have to execute. In addition to the bond, he can also ask you to furnish surety or security like bank guarantee, etc., which cannot exceed more than 25% of the value of tax. This procedure is to be completed in 6 months, but the date can be extended by the joint obligation for another 6 months, by the commissioner by another 6 months, So that means the assessment can be completed within 5 years. Now, if you look at subsection 4 now, it says registered person shall be liable to pay interest. Now the question is whether taxable person, if it is a taxable person, I hope and I'm sure you must be knowing the distinction between the two. If I'm registered with the department, I'm registered. If I'm liable to pay the tax but don't register, is a taxable person. If a taxable person asks for the provisional assessment, how the jurisdiction will be decided, to whom it should apply. In the case of registered person, the application is very clear. So I think there is some synchronization error, some typography error. But anyway, if we read as taxable person also, then where is my registered office? I can go to my jurisdictional officer and ask for the provisional assessment. But in my humble understanding, it is all a typo error. Everywhere it should be registered person only. Then, as I told you, if I am paying the tax short on final assessment, I am liable to pay interest, etc. Now the question comes, is this provisional assessment? I should go for it. Let me tell you, because similar provisions were there in service tax, and I have been dealing in service tax day in, day out. We have hardly used this provision. Because once you go for provisional assessment, then obviously final assessment has to be there. You have to go to the officer, and nobody wants to go to the officer. So what is my suggestion? You can simply pay the taxes, determining the value or rate of tax what you consider is appropriate. And tomorrow you realize you have not been able to calculate it correctly, use debit or credit note procedure rather than going for provisional assessment. Then this GST law is very unique. They had another mechanism of authority of advance ruling, wherein I can go to authority of advance ruling for classification of any goods, applicability of notification, determination of time and value of supply of goods, admissibility of input tax credit, determination of liability to pay tax. So all these questions can be answered, including these two aspects, which can be used for the purpose of provisional assessment, that is valuation of supply of goods and services or rate of tax. Should I go to authority of advance ruling? I think I need not even discuss with you. You all know these are being governed by the judicial, not by the judicial authorities, but the bureaucrats. Appellate authority is also being consisting of chief commissioners. So asking for authority of advance ruling, which is binding in the case of applicant, is another question. So my humble suggestion is neither we should go for authority of advance ruling unless there is a compelling reason. For example, we are consultant to DMRC. So one of the clients said, tomorrow if there is a problem, 12 and 18% was the issue. So I would like to go to authority of advance. It's a foreign company. Okay, go ahead. So unless otherwise those kind of compelling reasons are there, one should not go to authority of advance ruling the provisional assessment. But yes, it does not mean the provisional assessment is devoid of any merit. It has got two advantages also. Advantage is once you seek provisional assessment, then all the facts are being brought to the knowledge of the department. As a result of which, if tomorrow it had to be that you have paid less tax on the value has been on the lower side, you cannot be subject to penalty. All the facts are in the knowledge of the department. And secondly, extended period cannot be invoked. Because if there is no misstatement, suppression of fact, etc., then there is no question that you can be subject to show cause notice. So extended period will not be applicable because you have already shared all the facts with the revenue. So this is the advantage of provisional assessment. Subject matter is covered in authority of advance ruling, but I will not suggest you to follow these two unless otherwise there is a compelling reasons for the same. Then friends,
सर
we
एक
can
क्वेश्चन
go.
था इसमें सर
Please.
सर जैसे मान लो कोई एसएससी प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट के लिए जाता है, लेकिन वो क्या मतलब जैसे उसने बिल तो इशू कर ही दिया, तो वो क्या 3B और GSTR1 अपने जो वो डिटरमिन कर रहा है अपने हिसाब से करके वो फाइल कर दे, उसके बाद भी प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट के लिए जा सकता है वो?
देखिए, आपको टैक्स जमा कराना है वो आप प्रोविजनल बेसिस पे जमा करा सकते हैं. You can deposit the tax, but you cannot issue the invoice. If the department makes an assessment with 6 months, then you can revise the invoice and you can make it also. If there's a compelling reason because the amount is huge, another party wants to take the credit, you can go for provisional assessment, but he has to dispose of that application within 6 months. Till that time, you have to hold that. Or you can deposit the tax as per your own calculation. Once that provisional assessment comes, you execute the bond, etc. And then you can file the returns accordingly. Even if you remember, even in the case of new registration, where I make an application for registration within 30 days from the day I become liable to the tax. So I cannot issue the invoices. And my 16(1) clearly says every registered person is liable to claim the credit. So once I am issuing an invoice without GSTN number, initially I can do that, and then later on I can revise those invoices with the GSTN number which is allotted to me. So similar kind of procedure can be followed here also.
Okay.
If there is any other question with regard to these two sections, 59 and 60, you are most welcome. Otherwise, now we are going to deal with a very, very important section, 61, which is scrutiny of return. Friends, scrutiny of return is a very important section. And people are really, I know some of the professionals who have been dealing in service tax also, even they have not been able to appreciate the intent and the purpose of this section and the legal sanctity of this section. This section says the proper officer can scrutinize the return and related particulars furnished by the registered person. So first of all, it is applicable to the registered persons to verify the correctness of return and point out the discrepancies to you. Now, what is the scope of proper officer? Can he ask for any information in this section? Can he say, kindly provide me this information? No, he has to scrutinize the return and related particulars because everything is going online. Kindly try to appreciate. If I am a seller, then I am a buyer also. My GST number is being reported in the GST as one of the other persons. So that information is also available to me. Now they are developing the tool. The moment they will fill up the GSTN number, they will have whatever the purchases are being made by you. That is how the 2A is coming. Otherwise, 2A cannot be there. 2B may be a static one. So in any case, the information is coming. So that information is also available. ISD information is there. ICE data in case you are importing certain things, then data is also coming from there also. So the department can analyze all those information, but it cannot ask for the information. And believe me, according to my understanding, it is a beneficial provision for the assessor. If you have committed certain bona fide mistake, and that bona fide mistake has come into the knowledge of assessing officer, he pointed to you. You just look at it and you realize, yes, I have committed a mistake. Then this is the opportunity wherein you can pay the tax and interest. There's no question of penalty. And if the mistake would have been pointed after 3 years, the interest could have been for 3 years. Now it is only for a couple of months. And this assessment does not create any demand. That is very interesting. He will identify the mistake before issuing the notice, which is in ASMT 10. Once that notice comes to you, you say, no, your understanding is incorrect because you're taking the figure from the balance sheet and it includes certain income which is not subject to GST. You prepare a reconciliation and give it to him. That reply has to go in ASMT 11. And if he's satisfied with the reply, the matter goes off. And in case you realize, yes, it is a mistake, then you pay the tax and interest, even then the matter is finalized. And once the matter is finalized, he is issuing you ASMT 12. And in case he says that this is the understanding of the department, you are not eligible for this credit because of fake invoice, etc. Or 2A is not appearing, it is not appearing in 2A or whatever reason, or there is a mismatch in email and all that. And you realize that no, the department stand is not acceptable. So even the ASMT 10 does not create any demand at all. And once there is a difference which is there between the assessee and the revenue officer, he has no option but to serve you show cause notice under section 73 or 74. We have already discussed 73, 74 in 4 situations. For the sake of repetition, I'm once again repeating: non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, wrong availment or utilization of credit, and erroneous refund claim. If it is due to misstatement, suppression, etc., then 74, otherwise 73. Now, friends, once he is issuing ASMT 12, he can, matter is over. So that is why I say the beneficial provision does not create a demand. You have to simply file your reply in ASMT 11 and the matter goes for adjudication. No demand is being created with this. This is the scrutiny of return. But unfortunately, this provision is being utilized to pressurize the SSC for wrong availment of credit simply because of 2A, whereas we all understand there can be genuine reason. My supplier might have filed the return late. There may be a quarterly filer of return. ISD particulars are not coming. Even IceGate information, import IGST doesn't come into that picture. There can be n number of reasons. And as I was discussing with you, the Supreme Court Bharti case has already given a dimension that these are only tools for your assistance. You have to claim the credit according to your books of accounts. So then you can claim that. Unfortunately, they are issuing the notices in mechanical manner without applying any mind and without even identifying the issue. We can always challenge in case he asks for any information under this section, it is not applicable. In case he has issued the ASMT 10 without identifying the issue, you can again reply. You have to give me a proper notice so that I can respond to it. And wherever you receive ASMT 10 and you feel you're not liable to pay the tax, nothing to worry. You have to simply prepare a reconciliation and send it to him. And the demand doesn't get crystallized. In case there's a difference of opinion between the two, then show cause notice will follow. And in case you are able to convince to the department, proceeding comes to an end by issuance of ASMT 10, 12. And in case the department is able to convince you, you have made a mistake and you file the return, even then the matter comes to an end with less interest and no penalty. So that is why I say, otherwise, if you don't respond to ASMT 10, etc., then the department can take action under section 65, that is departmental audit, 66 special audit, 67 search, or issuance of 73 or 74. Now, most of the time, these ASMT 10s are issued because of excess availment of ITC, short payment of output tax liability in GSTR 1 and 3B. You have utilized more than 90% of the credit, or you have not followed Rule 36(4). We all know that has came only from 10th September 2009. And thereafter, firstly, it was 20% of 20% plus the amount which is being shown in 2A, then 10 and then 5. So that rule, you have to see if that period when this rule was not there. And we all understand that section 16(2) subclause A has been added, wherein they have put up a condition that he has to show it in GSTR 1, the amount should come. It is one of the conditions which is likely to be there, that has not yet been notified. Then there is no mechanism 1, 2, 3 of the system. So while responding to the department, you can also say there is the legal concept, and we all know you cannot expect an assessor to do an impossible task. Legal maxim is there, so we have to quote that also. And with regard to ITC, now Bharti Telecom and then Delhi Tribunal, we all know Arise India case is very popular, which is being agitated in the Supreme Court. And it is in favor of the SSC. That in spite of the fact that there is a legal provision that you are not eligible to the credit unless otherwise the payment has been made by the supplier. Similar provision was there in DVAT. They said you have to identify there are two kinds of buyers and suppliers. One recipient who is receiving the goods and services from the supplier is a bona fide one, paid the tax through banking channel, satisfying all the conditions of credit, and there's nothing which you can allege. And in that case, if the supplier has not paid the tax, then you cannot penalize the buyer for the fault committed by the seller. Then we can quote all this case law. So friends, we have to look at it, why this ASMT has been issued, and then accordingly we need to reply to them. So this is really important. There can be n number of reasons for which they can say. So we have to look for the reason, we have to explain it to them, and we need not worry. We all understand that simply issuing the ASMT 10 does not create any demand. We agree, we pay, we don't agree, then let them issue. And the maxim which I was talking about was lex non cogent impossibilita. You cannot expect an assessor to do an impossible task. How can I know whether he has deposited the tax or not? Even if he supplied me form 3B, he is showing his output tax liability 100 rupees, credit 60 rupees, payment 40. Whether in that 100 rupees my invoice is included or not, there is no mechanism. So the government is also thinking very seriously on this, and maybe, I'm sure, it may be a mandate or maybe some procedure, but I am really surprised that they have inserted clause AA in section 62, putting up an additional condition, providing him a statutory base. One can argue these rules cannot supersede this section, or these are only procedural in terms of Supreme Court judgment. But then at the same time, if the section itself is amended and it is being made one of the conditions for claiming the credit, then the things can go worse. But in any case, we have to live with this. Now GST has come, so we have to draft the reply very carefully, giving all the facts, etc. So now, friends, looking to the time constraint, I'm moving to the another important section, that is 62, which is best judgment assessment in the case of non-filer. Friends, you must appreciate, this is best judgment assessment, so principle of best judgment assessment has to be followed. It is applicable in the case of registered person who has failed to furnish the return. First of all, your proper officer need to give you a notice under section 46 that you have not filed your return. Still, you don't care for that section 4, his notice issued under section 46. He can make a best judgment assessment, look into the information available with him, and that assessment has to be finalized as per the period prescribed under section 44 within 5 years of the period prescribed under section 44. 41 means filing the annual return, which is 31st of December of the following financial year, 5 years from now. So there's a time limit which has been prescribed. What is really interesting is to observe subsection 2. It says if you furnish a valid return within 30 days of the service of assessment order under subsection 1, then assessment orders deemed to have been withdrawn. Kindly see the difference. अभी तक हमने 59 देखा, 60 देखा, और 61 में scrutiny of return देखा, which is not an assessment itself, और वो भी कोई demand create नहीं करता. अब जब हम best judgment assessment की बात करते हैं, तो वहां भी वो क्या कहता है कि once it is being done and you file the return, because it is in the case of non-filer, and that return is valid, you have paid the tax and shown all the particulars, then this assessment is deemed to have been withdrawn. No legal sanctity. So within 30 days, if you file the return, then this section does not have any legal sanctity. But this section overrides the provision of section 73, 74. So meaning thereby, if you don't file the return, it is not being withdrawn. He has served you the notice under section 46, best judgment has been done, then the demand is being created, then it has to be challenged before the appellate authorities. That is very, very important. Then we have another best judgment assessment, that is under section 63, which is in the case of non-filer. Which is in the case of not registered person. Here again, they can do a best judgment assessment. This provision is also notwithstanding contained in section 73, 74. If I am a person liable to pay tax, the department search my premises, they came to know that my turnover is very huge. So he can make a best judgment assessment in the case of unregistered person also and determine the tax liability. What is really important is that once we have been served with this order and I file my returns, admit my liability, and pay the tax, then the matter seems to be closed. No assessment under this section can be done without providing me a reasonable opportunity. In this case, department is really in a difficult position because I am not registered. My data is not available in the department. In the case of non-filer of returns, section 62, the advantage with the department is GST or one of the other supplier is there, which can show what is my purchase. On that basis, they can have some idea how to use the best judgment assessment, because that has to be a fair adjustment, not the wild guess, etc. And the same principle which are applicable in income tax are applicable with GST also. Opportunity need to be given. Then cancellation of certificate also. So I am not going deeper into that, looking to the time constraint, because I want to give 10-15 minutes for the queries also. My humble suggestion is that this section 63, if you don't respond, again the demand will be crystallized. It is notwithstanding anything 73, 74. Kindly attend them properly. And wherever you are at fault, admit the liability, pay the tax, so that you can save the penalties and subsequent interest also. But wherever the department is unjustified, you feel you are not liable to register, the department says you are liable to register, then that litigation has to go on. The difference between 62 and 63 is that 62 is applicable for non-filer, 63 is applicable to unregistered person. Here it is the best judgment assessment where they are having some information. Unfortunately, in the case of unregistered person, they have to make a white guess. Now I'm coming to the section which I'm 100% confident will provide a lot of work to be professional. क्योंकि इस सेक्शन में इतनी कंडीशंस लगाई गई हैं, डिपार्टमेंट कंडीशन को पूरा नहीं कर पाएगा. जैसे आपने देखा प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट में अभी अशोक जी बता रहे थे 86A में उन्होंने सर्कुलर भी निकाला स्टैंडर्ड ऑपरेटिंग प्रोसीजर बताने के लिए. सर्कुलर ऐसे नहीं निकाला, हाई कोर्ट ने बहुत सारी जजमेंट में उनको डांट लगाई. इट इज सच ए ह्यूज पावर गिवन टू द असेसिंग ऑफिसर. यू शुड हैव सम गाइडलाइंस. It is not simply on the basis of suspicion. There has to be reason to believe. The reason must be recorded like 148. All those things have been incorporated in that procedure. Now, if you look at it, it says that the proper officer may, on any evidence showing the tax liability of a person. So here, even if you are not registered, for example, you may be a transporter, you are not liable to be registered because all the liability has to be discharged in a reverse charge by its client. But still they have said any person. They have, let us say, एक ट्रक उन्होंने आपका रोक लिया, उसमें माल था, कोई ऑनर नहीं आ रहा तो ट्रांसपोर्टर पे भी असेसमेंट कर सकते हैं. Similarly, they have raided a premises where certain goods are lying. Nobody is coming to claim that goods. So premises belong to Ashok Batra, who may not be a supplier. So say even that person in whose possession these goods are being found out, he is being treated as the owner of such goods, and he can also be subject to assessment. Now, summary assessment in this case is notwithstanding anything contained in 73, 74. That is the basic difference. 62 और 63 में ये नॉन ऑब्स्टेंट क्लॉज में थी, इसमें ऐसा नहीं है. तो कहता है showing the tax liability of a person, he has to take the previous permission of additional commissioner, joint commissioner, and he can assess my liability to protect the interest of revenue. He has to prove that in case this section is not being invoked and they follow the long drawn process of 73, 74, then the interest of the department may prejudicially affect it. So by and large, if you are an assessee who is being registered with the department for a couple of years, if they want to invoke this section, according to my understanding, that can be easily challengeable. So he has to fulfill the condition, he has to take the permission, he has reason to believe that in case I don't invoke this section, then the interest of the revenue is prejudicially likely to be affected. So there's such a huge condition, which according to my understanding, they may not be able to satisfy. And that is why I was saying it can be subject matter of litigation and provide a lot of work. Now, what is really important is subsection 2. It says if an application is made by a taxable person within 30 days from the receipt of the order, that whatever order you have passed, or even the assessing officer himself realize, he find that this order is erroneous, he may withdraw such order. असेसमेंट होने के बाद किसी आदमी को पावर देना है कि तुम इसको विड्रॉ कर सकते हो. You can understand that he has to issue, and tomorrow, because the demand will be created under this section, we challenge it. Department very smartly said, उसको आप withdraw करो and you follow the procedure of 7374. So अब आपने अगर ये 5 सेक्शन देखे हैं रिटर्न के, तो आपने देखा होगा कि इन 5 सेक्शन का पर्पस डिफरेंट है, ऑब्जेक्टिव डिफरेंट है, और मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर बेनिफिशियल. फॉर एग्जांपल, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट 59 सेल्फ असेसमेंट, इट इज सिंपली एज इन द फिस्कल लॉ, कहीं आपकी गलती रह गई, कुछ हो गया, आपने असेसमेंट करना है विद सम लिमिटेशन कि आपकी रिकवरी डिडक्ट हो सकती है या आपको इंस्टॉलमेंट का बेनिफिट नहीं मिलता है. Provisional assessment is again for the benefit where he is not able to determine the value of services or rate of tax. Then comes 61 scrutiny of return, which is again to the benefit of the assessee in case there is a bona fide mistake. And in case it doesn't agree with the observation made by the proper officer, nothing loss is being caused. At the end, he has to serve me show cause notice only. So 61 is also beneficial. 62 and 63, once you are a non-filer or you are unregistered, but the department has a conclusive evidence that there is the liability, then these kind of sections are bound to be there. But I'll say that is also a blessing in disguise. You are liable to be registered, somehow you are not aware of it because of some misconception in your mind, and they assess you, you realize, yes, I'm liable to be registered, then you can at least get yourself registered. Whatever has been done in the past, that you have to suffer, but the subsequent period you would not likely to be suffered. Unregistered person, this is a call. He is doing assessment under section 62 for non-filer. You are filing the return and the order is being withdrawn. So it is again a reminder, भैया return नहीं भरी तेरी गलती है, return भर दे, एक और opportunity दे रहे हैं. You file the return, this assessment order will become invalid. So in my humble understanding, except section 64, which is giving a wide powers to them, I feel all the sections are in favor of the assessee, and by and large, this is the assessment procedure which is being followed. When we come to adjudication, then there are only 2 sections. In case I would have been addressing the people who have been dealing in service tax, then there's not much of a change. But yes, because I'm dealing with the professionals who have been dealing mainly in income tax, and now adjudication in most of the cases will give a cause to the demand. So we must understand that adjudication is being done under section 73 and 74. As I told you, in most of the cases, self-assessment tax, etc., if there is a shortfall in demand, they have to submit the show cause notice. Now, again, for the cost of repeating, I am saying 73 and 74 can be invoked only when there is a non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, erroneous claim of refund, or wrong availment or utilization of credit. If you look at pre-GST era, there are 5 words which have been used: fraud, collusion, willful misstatement, suppression of fact, and non-compliance of provision with the intent to evade tax. Now, fraud and the non-compliance of provision has been omitted. Now it is misstatement, suppression, etc. If these 4 events are because of that, the section 74 will apply. If you read section 73 and 74, they have been numbered in the same manner, except for minor differences, which I'll point out when I'll go to that. These sections are very limited. So first of all, they say that they can serve you the notice under section 73 for these 4 copies, and there is a time limit for that. Time limit is for the adjudication. It is 3 years from the relevant date, from the due date of filing the return under section 44, when it is because of non-fraud, etc. And it is 5 years when these 4 events, non-payment, etc., is because of misstatement, etc. Now, when the show cause is to be issued, in the case of 73, they clearly says, if, let us say, I'm talking about 17-18, due date of filing a return was extended number of times. I don't remember, assuming it was December 20. Then 3 years from that, December 23, they can serve me the show cause notice. And they have to adjudicate the matter. So they can serve me show cause notice 3 months prior to the date my case is becoming टाइम बाउंड फॉर एडजुडिकेशन। तो मुझे 3 महीने का काम मिला। अब मैं ये समझता हूं कि ये इन्होंने इक्विटेबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ वर्क कर दिया। सर्विस टैक्स में जहां चंद प्रोफेशनल्स की मोनोपोली थी या अच्छा काम आता था, तो वो शो कॉज नोटिस सारे उनके पास आते थे, तो वो अपना 6 महीने कई एक्सटेंशन ले रहे हैं, कई साल में, 2 साल में करते थे। अब अगर ये शो कॉज नोटिस अशोक बत्रा के पास 25 या 30 आ गए और वे शो कॉज नोटिस आए लेट अस से 3 महीने पहले, तो अशोक बत्रा का ऑफिस कितना भी बड़ा हो, कितनी भी लिमिटेशन हो, कैन रिस्पॉन्ड टू ऑल दो शो कॉज नोटिस। इसी तरह से जो 74 है उसमें दे हैव टू सबमिट द शो कॉज नोटिस विद इन बिफोर 6 months from the date when my assessment is going to be, adjudication is going to be time. वहां 6 महीने का नोटिस दिया है, यहाँ 3 महीने। हमारे यहाँ तो 2 दिवालियां हुआ करती थी प्री जीएसटी एरा में, वो अभी भी चल रही है, एक अप्रैल के महीने में, एक अक्टूबर का महीने, क्योंकि 6 महीने टाइम बार्ड होते थे। 25 अप्रैल को 6 महीने टाइम बार्ड होता है अक्टूबर को। तो पार्टनर से यही बात कर रहा था कि इस बार हमारे पास जितने शो कॉज आए हैं, हमें तो 2-4 और रखने पड़ेंगे सिर्फ इसी काम के लिए। लेकिन जीएसटी में मैं क्या करूंगा मुझे नहीं पता। अगर 3 महीने पहले मेरे पास इतने नोटिस आ गए तो मैं ट्रेंड मैन पावर तो ला नहीं सकता। तो ये कहीं ना कहीं जहां इन्वेस्टिगेशन चल रही है वहां आप लोगों को ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि ये शो कॉज नोटिस आने वाला है और उसकी अब पहले तैयारी कर लेते हैं, पहले ड्राफ्ट बना लेते हैं, सब कुछ बता देते हैं, जब शो कॉज आएगा एलिगेशन के हिसाब से कंप्लीट कर लेंगे। सो वी बी केयरफुल अबाउट दिस because if they serve all the, because department also function on the last dates. That is the problem. I hope you all understand that. Secondly says you have to submit the notice, time limit और prescribe कर दिया जो मैंने आपको बता दिया। थर्ड ये कहता है कि अगर subsequent show cause है, आपका issue settle नहीं हुआ, तो rather than issuing the detailed show cause notice, he can serve you a statement which is as good as show cause, और उसकी सर्विस है वो शो कॉज की नोटिस की ही सर्विस मानी जाएगी। और स्टेटमेंट में वो सिर्फ डिमांड लिख देगा और एक लाइन लिख देगा, दिस स्टेटमेंट इज बीइंग इशूड ऑन द सिमिलर एलिगेशन व्हिच हैज बीन देयर इन द शो कॉज नोटिस नंबर so and so फॉर दिस पीरियड, हाउएवर दिस स्टेटमेंट इज बीइंग इशूड फॉर दिस सब्सिक्वेंट पीरियड। ये 74 में भी है, 73 में भी है, सिमिलर प्रोविजन है, मैं सिर्फ सेक्शन 73 ही डील कर रहा हूं। अब यहाँ 73(5) it provides you an opportunity that you can pay the tax and interest before the show cause notice is being issued. Then there is no question of any penalty. 73 में कोई penalty नहीं है, 74 में 15% of the tax is the amount of penalty. अभी आप देख रहे होंगे जैसे फेक इनवॉइसेस के नोटिस आते हैं, उसमें वो ये कहते हैं टैक्स जमा करा दो, इंटरेस्ट जमा करा दो, 15% पेनल्टी जमा करा दो, तो आपका मैटर 74 में 15% इसमें नहीं। और 73 में अगर मुझे शो कॉज मिल जाता है और मैं उसके विद इन 30 डेज टैक्स और इंटरेस्ट जमा करा देता हूँ, तो मेरी पेनल्टी क्या लगेगी? 10% of the tax or 10,000 rupees, whichever is higher. So minimum penalty is 10,000, but maximum is only 10% of the tax. तो 73 में शो कॉज नोटिस के 30 डेज में मैं कराऊं, जबकि जब 74 इन्वोक होता है वहां नील थी, वहां 15 थी, नील 15, यहाँ 10 है और वहां 25 है, 15 का फिर फर्क आ गया, नील 10, 10 25। और 74 में तो एक और अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने दे दी कि अगर आपने एडजुडिकेशन ऑर्डर पास होने के बाद भी टैक्स इंटरेस्ट जमा करा दिया तो आपकी पेनल्टी विल गेट रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू 50%, बट इन केस यू वांट टू चैलेंज इट देन सर्टेनली आइदर इट इज 0 और इट इज 100%। काइंडली अप्रिशिएट, कई बार पेनल्टी का लालच छोड़ के भी हमें लिटिगेट करना पड़ता है, बिकॉज वंस आई एडमिट माय डिफॉल्ट इट हैज रिपरकशन इन अदर लॉज। फॉर एग्जांपल, एक फेक इनवॉइस का बिल आया, आपने कहा क्या लिटिगेशन करनी है, 10 लाख का बिल है, 1.5 लाख रुपए टैक्स से एडमिट कर दो, तो प्रॉब्लम आनी है। प्रॉब्लम ये है कि अगर उस पर 276 AAD लगता है और उस पीरियड का वो इनवॉइस है, तो 10 लाख रुपए की तो आपकी इनकम की एडिशन वहां हो जाएगी, equivalent to the amount of transaction, the penalty leviable in 276, तो 10 लाख की तो पेनल्टी हो गई। फिर आपका 10 लाख रुपए का डिसअलाउंस होगा खर्चे में, तो उसमें 40% लगेगा, तो कॉन्सिक्वेंट 271C और 234 का जो इंटरेस्ट आएगा वो कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फॉलो करेगा। तो कई बार मेरा ये सजेशन रहता है कि अगर 15% पेनल्टी लग भी रही है, उसको छोड़ भी दें 15 की, अगर 100 भी हो जाएगी तो भी जिसके जो इम्प्लीकेशन है इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में उससे सस्ती पड़ेगी. So every time we should not follow this procedure and take the advantage, because once I admit a fault, then 276 AAD में मुझे पेनल्टी लगेगी, प्लस मेरा डिसलर्स होगा, प्लस कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल फॉलो करेंगे. हम इसको लड़ सकते हैं, कह सकते हैं कि हमने चेक से पेमेंट की, ये किया, और जब तक ये मैटर फाइनलाइज होगा मेरी इनकम टैक्स की असेसमेंट टाइम बढ़ जाएगा. So kindly take your call, particularly in the case of 74. Then 76 कहता है कि once you have paid the tax before issuance show cause with interest, then no show cause notice is to be issued. और जहां show cause notice issue हो गया वहां आपने 73 के केस में 10% पेनल्टी जमा करा दी और 74 के केस में 25% जमा करा दी, तो भी प्रोसीडिंग इज deemed to have been concluded in your favor. ऐसा भी पॉसिबल है, डिपार्टमेंट आपसे कहे आप 100 रुपए जमा कराओ और आपके हिसाब से लायबिलिटी बनती है 70 रुपए की, तो आप 70 रुपए वॉलंटरी जमा करा सकते हैं और 30 रुपए के लिए डिपार्टमेंट को शो कॉज करना पड़ेगा. Are you getting me? ऐसा नहीं है कि आप सारी बात डिपार्टमेंट की मान लोगे तभी आप इस प्रोविजन का फायदा उठा सकते हैं. डिपार्टमेंट इज सेइंग कि आपकी डिमांड निकलती है 100 रुपए, मैं मानता हूँ कि 40 रुपए मेरी गलती है, आई एडमिट 40 रुपीज, मैं 40 रुपीज प्लस इंटरेस्ट जमा करा देता हूँ या 40 रुपीज प्लस इंटरेस्ट पर पेनल्टी जमा कराता हूँ 10%, तो मुझे शो कॉज कितने का करेगा? 60 रुपए. Sometimes we commit certain mistakes, we admit. Sometimes the department interpretation is not acceptable to us, so there can be both the situation in one case. So wherever we feel we have no good case, वहां हम उसको एडमिट करके जमा करा सकते हैं और बैलेंस के लिए हम शो कॉज ले सकते हैं. फिर उसको डिटर्मिनेशन करनी है 79 में, और डिटर्मिनेशन करने का जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि टाइम लायबिलिटी है 3 years, in the case of 73 5 years from the relevant date, और पेनल्टी प्रोविजंस 76 के ऑलमोस्ट मैंडेटरी हैं because of 73(11). It's read as follows: notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 6 or 8 or 9, penalty shall be leviable where the amount of self-assessed tax or the amount collected has not been paid. जैसे मैंने कहा सेल्फ असेस टैक्स की डिमांड है और वो है तो आपको पेनल्टी भी वहां कंपल्सरी देनी पड़ेगी. और 74(11) डिफरेंट है 73 से. वो ये कहता है कि जहां आपको शो कॉज नोटिस हो गया आप 50% का टैक्स जमा करा देंगे एज ए पेनल्टी और टैक्स इंटरेस्ट जमा करा देंगे, तब भी वो प्रोसीडिंग वहां खत्म हो जाएगी. So wherever you feel that you don't have case on merit, in the case of penalty also you can use that provision also. Again, I am not summarizing. 73 74 both can be issued for 4 situations: non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, erroneous claim of refund, and wrong availment or utilization of credit. If we pay the tax before issuance of show cause notice, in the case of 73, I have to pay only tax and interest, no penalty. Within 30 days from the date of issuance of show cause notice, I pay the tax and interest, and the penalty is only 10,000 rupees or 10% of the tax, whichever is higher. In the case of 74, if I pay the tax before show cause notice, then I'm liable to pay penalty 15% of the tax amount. Within 30 days from the date of issuance of a show cause notice, I have to pay penalty at the rate of 25% of the tax. And after adjudication, I can further pay by 50%. Sometimes I am willing to pay, but I am pressed by my cash flow problems. Perhaps I cannot deal with that. So in such cases, we take a call कि चलो इसको litigate करते हैं, 25% penalty इतनी बढ़ती है देख लेंगे, तो जब वो आएगा तो हम उसको 50% जमा करा देंगे. तो हम फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन को देखते हुए क्लाइंट की कई बार उसको प्रोलॉन्ग भी कर देते हैं. सो एवरीबॉडी हैज टू टेक ए कॉल. तो जहां तक एडमिशन का टैक्स का सवाल है, मैं आपको बार बार क्वेश्चन कर रहा हूं, फिर कह रहा हूं, 74 पे जहां भी एलिगेशन आया, द मोमेंट यू एडमिट एंड पे द पेनल्टी वॉलंटियरली, 276 AAD is likely to be invoked, and that amount of supply is liable to be disallowed in computing your taxable income, and corresponding subsequent action 271 CR 234 is also likely to follow. With this, I am just putting a full stop to this assessment adjudication. If there is any query with regard to this, you can take either assessment first and adjudication later, or mixed queries also if there is any.
सर जैसे अभी जो डिपार्टमेंट से इन्वेस्टिगेशन से पर्टिकुलरली कहीं पे तो इंक्वायरी लेटर्स आते हैं और कहीं पे वो समन इशू करते हैं सर, तो सर उसको
देखिए
कैसे डील किया जाए वो थोड़ा सा आप बता दीजिए सर उसको।
देखिए इंक्वायरी लेटर तो पाएगा ही जब भी कोई डिपार्टमेंट ने इन्वेस्टिगेट करना है। सम्मन आपके यहाँ सेक्शन 131 वहाँ सम्मन है, वही सम्मन यहाँ है। यहाँ सेक्शन 70 में प्रेस्क्राइब किया हुआ नीचे लिखा होता है कि 193 228 ऑफ द कोड ऑफ क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर विल आल्सो फॉलो। ये भी सम्मन ही है जैसे 131 होता है। यहाँ भी पेनल्टी है 10,000 रुपीज इन केस यू डोंट डू दैट। यहाँ थोड़ा सा जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर है वो थोड़ा सा स्ट्रांग है, तो वो आपको कह देता है जब जब जाते हैं पहले तो 2 घंटे आपको बाहर बिठा देता है साइकोलॉजिकली, फिर अंदर बुलाएगा तो कह देगा आप मेरी मर्जी के बिना जा नहीं सकते, अगर आपने कोई गलत स्टेटमेंट दी तो यू कैन बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड अंडर क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर, सीआरपीसी में आपके अगेंस्ट वो हो जाएगा। तो डराने की बात है। फैक्ट तो यही है कि जब आप की वो स्टेटमेंट रिकॉर्ड करना चाहता है या जब आप इंक्वायरी लेटर के रिस्पॉन्स में अपीयर नहीं होते हैं तो वो सम्मन नहीं देता है। और यहाँ सम्मन के बाद भी एक प्रोसीजर है, पहले वो बेलेबल वारंट देता है फिर नॉन बेलेबल वारंट भी देता है। इफ यू डोंट कोऑपरेट एंड डोंट सप्लाई द इंफॉर्मेशन, आपने देखा है अभी बहुत सारे केसेस आजकल पब्लिक मीडिया में चल रहे हैं, तो कहते हैं इन्वेस्टिगेशन हुई उसने बोला नहीं एंड देन दे इमीडिएटली सेंड टू द जुडिशियल कस्टडी ऑफ ईडी और जुडिशियल कस्टडी में भेज देते। तो अगर आप कोऑपरेट नहीं करेंगे, अगर आप कोऑपरेट कर रहे हैं तो नॉर्मली समन शुड नॉट बी इश्यूड। once you are responding to the inquiry letter then practically there is no need to issue the summons। वो करते जरूर है डराने के लिए, वो एक अलग बात है, but legally if I am cooperating in the investigation I am providing all the document information, there is no need। अगर हम नहीं करते हैं तो सम्मन भी करेगा, वारंट भी करेगा, he can search you also under section 67।
सर शो कॉज नोटिस क्या इंक्वायरी के बेस पे भी कर सकता है कि जैसे इंक्वायरी लेटर दे दिया लेकिन उसने समन नहीं दिया मेरे को?
देखिए शो कॉज का मैंने आपसे कहा ना कि टाइम लिमिट है। होता क्या है कि लोगों को पता टाइम लिमिट है, डिपार्टमेंट को भी पता है, तो आप भी इंफॉर्मेशन विदआउट करके रखते हो तो फिर उसके पास कोई चॉइस नहीं रहती। परसों 25 अक्टूबर को 6 महीने 16-17 का टाइम बाद हो गया, अप्रैल टू सितंबर, उसके पास कोई चॉइस है नहीं, आप कोऑपरेट नहीं कर रहे, फिर वो सेक्शन 72 इन्वोक करता है बेस्ट जजमेंट असेसमेंट का, उसके बेसिस पे आपको शो कॉज कर देता है। ये 72 सर्विस चेक का है, यहाँ भी इसी तरह से कोई बेस्ट जजमेंट असेसमेंट का सेक्शन होगा, he will code that and he will estimate the figures।
Sir, in case of search proceedings, there is generally a pressure from department to submit tax by DRC. So उस केस में I would like to know your opinion कि वहाँ पे अगर मैं उसको मुझे उसी टाइम पे ही उनको बोलना चाहिए कि this is to buy mental peace या that should be our latest step।
देखिए बहुत सारी जजमेंट्स हैं, अभी जीएसटी में भी आ चुकी हैं, जहाँ उन्होंने ये कहा कि at the time of search no recovery can be made because the default is not quantified or the demand is not there। But the question is if they had gotten evidence which you feel it is very difficult to escape, then you can say I am willing to pay this amount, ultimately you have to pay। But again my suggestion is that that amount must be paid under protest to buy mental peace। और अगर आपने उस टाइम भूल भी गया तो 24 घंटे के अंदर लेटर लिख दो कि दिस अमाउंट व्हिच आई हैव पेड इज अंडर कंटेस्ट टू बाय द मेंटल पीस, आई रिजर्व माय राइट टू लिटिगेट द मैटर। उसमें आपको वो अपना रखना पड़ेगा कोई इनकम टैक्स में द मोमेंट यू एडमिट इट दीस आर द ट्रांजैक्शन आउटसाइड द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स, देन वहां तो रिजेक्शन ऑफ बुक्स भी हो सकती है। इट कैन हैव सीरियस इंप्लीकेशन अदरवाइज आल्सो। सो द बेटर थिंग इज मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ। फॉर एग्जांपल आजकल फेक इनवॉइसिंग का इशू है। आपको ये इनवॉइस मिले 10 लाख रुपए के, आपने पार्टी से खरीदे, डिपार्टमेंट लेके आया कि उस एड्रेस पे कोई आदमी नहीं है, ये आदमी फेक है, ये डॉक्यूमेंट से लिए गए। आपका ये स्टैंड है कि नहीं भैया मैंने तो इसको चेक से पेमेंट की है, मेरे पास इनवॉइस है, मेरे पास मटेरियल आया है, आपकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन से मैं एग्री नहीं करता और आपने मुझे क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन का मौका नहीं दिया, उस सब स्टैंड आप ले सकते हो। तो मेरा ये कहना है अंदर से आपको पता है डिमांड गड़बड़ है, इनकम टैक्स में आप बचना चाहते हैं, तो आप ये कह सकते हैं कि देयर इज अ प्रोविजन, अगर 180 डेज के अंदर मैंने पेमेंट नहीं की तो मुझे क्रेडिट रिवर्स करना है। तो जहां तो आउटस्टैंडिंग अमाउंट है वहां रादर देन सेइंग कि दिस ट्रांजैक्शन इज नॉट जेन्युइन, यू से आई एडमिट that I have failed to pay to the supplier the value of goods and tax thereon, so I am reversing the credit, and once I'll make the payment, I'll be eligible to claim the credit, but I'll do that without saying that these transactions are not good. Secondly, क्या होता है in cases में entry भी जल्दी घूम जाती है. We all understand that. तो उसमें nil रहता है. तो उस केस में क्या एक provision है जो हम कहते हैं कि draconian है, but उस draconian provision को हम अपने benefit के लिए use कर सकते हैं. The provision is unless otherwise the tax is not paid by the supplier to the government, your credit will not be allowed. 62 में condition जिसको हम कहते हैं कि impossible condition है, buyer should not be penalized for the supplier, right? India and all that. We take all those sorry. We take all those arguments. वहाँ हम ये कह सकते हैं my transaction is genuine, but I have been given to understand that my supplier has not paid the tax, which is one of the conditions for reversal of credit. So I'm reversing my credit without saying that this transaction is not genuine because he has not paid the tax. GST department को तो recovery से मतलब है. तो अगर आप उसके basis पे recovery कर देते हैं, reverse कर देते हैं credit को, so then you are not opening your gate with the income tax department also. You are not admitting that's a fake transaction. You are simply saying, yes, I have not fulfilled the other conditions. For example, payment of tax, or he has not filed the return, he has not paid the tax to the exchequer. So we can take those grounds and accordingly we can file the reply. I was thinking there will be a lot of questions because ASM return इतने आ रहे हैं. तो मैं तो जान के टाइम थोड़ा ज्यादा, क्योंकि मेरा तो बड़ा एक strong conviction है. Nobody comes here to test your knowledge. Everybody join the seminar to solve his queries. सर मेरे साथ ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, मेरे साथ ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही है. आई वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग दैट. मुझे पता था तो आधा घंटा वही और खींच देता. चलिए, नो क्वेश्चन इन चैट बॉक्स.
Nothing, sir.
चलो, ग्रेट.
Yes. बस.
जी.
हाँ. Thank you, sir, for a very informative and lucid talk. I appreciate the way you impart your knowledge in a very easy language. I hope members will surely be benefited from his deliberation, which will help them in guiding their clients and taking appropriate action in the case of notice of department in this regard. Now I request CA Vipul Mata to formally present vote of thanks.
Vipul, before you proceed, आज की डेलिब्रेशन से मैंने भी एक सबक लिया कि आप इनसे क्वेश्चंस टॉपिक के पहले मंगवा लिया करें ताकि आदमी को स्पीकर को पता हो कि वी हैड दिस मच ऑफ क्वेश्चन टू आंसर. अदरवाइज ही कैन डिस्कस द इशू इन डिटेल बिकॉज़ I have hurriedly gone through 63, 64 and 62 assuming that there will be a lot of questions and that these provisions are not being invoked so frequently nowadays for the time being. तो मैंने उसको जल्दी में किया. But anyway, so it's a lesson for all of us and we must learn from our experience. तो क्वेश्चन मंगा लिया करें, स्पीकर को बता दें हमारे पास इतने क्वेश्चंस हैं and then accordingly speaker can reorient his discussion.
Point taken, sir. Point taken.
सर अगर आपको कोई लगता है कि अभी कोई 10 मिनट में कोई इंपॉर्टेंट चीज बताने वाली है तो सर आप कंटिन्यू कर सकते हैं.
आप कह सकते हैं सर.
फोटो टैग करने से पहले. चलिए, मैंने भी कहीं जाना है आज, थोड़ा मैं भी जल्दी में हूँ, तो some other day will.
ठीक है.
Right. Sure, sir. Thank you, Ravi ji. I present the vote of thanks. Before that, I would really say that understanding the issues involved in assessment and adjudication under GST has become much more vital now, with the GST department being on its toes. And I foresee that we professionals will be spending much more of our time dealing with such issues in times to come. Batra sir has dealt with the topic in a very beautiful and a simple manner, and his level of experience and knowledge is unmatchable. I'm sure all the members would have learned a lot out of you, sir. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. Also, I would like to thank Ashok ji for his wonderful presentation on the latest development. We are always grateful to you, sir. Thank you so much for taking your time out.
Thank you, sir.
With this, we conclude the session for today. Thanks a lot for joining. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.